Professor MacDonald is an Emeritus Professor of Creative Industries, the Robert Gordon University, Aberdeen. He's also Director of the Creative Frontline. His consultancy specializes in creativity, design, and innovation. He is the Distinguished Visiting Fellow of the University of Strathclyde. He has been head of Gray's School of Art, Aberdeen, before which he was the founding director of the Lighthouse, Scotland's National Centre for Architecture and Design. He served as a trustee of the UK Design Council. He's been the founding director of the Creative and Cultural Industries Sector Skills Council. He sat on the UK Creative Apprenticeships Task Force, and he's been on Nesta's Creative Pioneer Programme Committee. The list goes on. He's been a member of the British Council's Design Review Group. He's been a member of the Ministerial Working Group on the Creative Industries in Scotland. He's been a key figure in the promotion of Scotland's architecture and creative industry policies. He's initiated the Six Cities Design Festival, and his consultancy work is extensive. You know, he works with the Centre for Design and Innovation at the Robert Gordon University. He has facilitated an intergenerational project in rural West Scotland, and he's working with the British Council developing an action plan on higher art and design education in Libya. You know, the list, I'm just going to stop there. I think all we need to do is to appropriately welcome Professor Stuart MacDonald.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for that very nice and warm welcome. And also thanks to the organisers for inviting me. And since I got the invitation, it's been really interesting for me to learn about East Ontario's creative economy and compare it with Scotland's creative economy. And it seems to me that we have much to learn from one another, and certainly we have some geographic and economic challenges we can share. Since I'm going to be talking about people, places and ideas, as the title of my talk indicates, I just want to familiarise you with the map of Scotland and what I'm going to be talking about. I'll begin with Glasgow, where I live, which dominates urban Scotland, is one of the biggest cities in the UK, but as a big migration centre, it also connects in many important ways to rural Scotland. But you cannot escape the fact, looking at this map, that Scotland is a small maritime nation on the periphery of Europe with a very large rural geography, and in fact it contains some of the last remaining wilderness in Western Europe. So on the one hand, it has to be shout to be heard, but on the other, it also has the largest coastline in Europe, 5,000 miles in fact, due to the number of islands to the west and to the north, and which I'll be speaking about in terms of their very distinctive creative rural economy, and which I think have many similarities with Ontario. But central to my talk is the idea of the joined-up policy narrative and political leadership and the role of Creative Scotland, the national agency, which sits within the broader context of creative and cultural provision. And for the first time in Scotland, probably for the first time in Europe, a corporate plan has been produced that includes working across the span of Scotland's creative and cultural industries, or what we call for short the CCIs, with a very diverse range of public and private partners. And that gives me my focus on policy and practice, particularly the interconnectedness of creative nation, city, region, project, place, and people. And I also touch on themes such as partnership, skills, infrastructure, design, spillovers, I'll say that again, and sector growth. And I'm going to highlight the unique needs of the creative rural economy, as well as the requirement for dedicated business and support tools. The focus will be on economic as opposed to cultural development, although, of course, the two are inseparably linked. This is about as rural and creative as you can get, or as remote and fragile as you can get. when a company called NVA transformed the dramatic natural land formation of the Old Man of Storr in Trotternish on the island of Skye through illumination and sound throughout the months of August and September a couple of years ago, they created a very intense and personal experience. For 42 nights, this award-winning installation, Storr, the Unfolding Landscape, brought an audience of 6,500 people equipped with headlamps, guides, and walking sticks on a strenuous walk to witness one of Europe's most dramatic and inspiring landscapes at midnight. The massed pinnacles and buttresses were illuminated with powerful soundscapes which drifted down from the ridges above. But as well as its cultural impact and its economic impact on tourism, NVA, which is short for Naciala Vitae Activae, demonstrates 6 key things about the creative rural economy. The first is that remoteness is no barrier to mounting significant creative projects. The second is it is quite literally a model of the experience economy in which to quote, work is theatre and every business a stage. Third, it is also an example of the project economy. In the case of NVA, a core team of 6 people is variously expanded to suit the needs of individual projects, utilising the services of numerous freelancers, lighting designers, musicians, sound engineers, graphic designers, filmmakers, and web designers. Fourthly, at its core is a creative entrepreneur, a guy called Angus Farquhar, who, as well as creativity, possesses the leadership required and the skills to develop and deliver such projects. In other words, to sell the project to investors and external stakeholders, as well as promote and market the experience. Fifthly, there's a clear spillover effect into the tourism sector. And sixth, it is a very potent form of place branding. And crucially, the project is located within the creative rural economy and not in an urban context, as is usually the case with creative industries. But definitions are important, as we heard at the beginning. And in a number of ways, the Storr project represents the contemporary creative economy at whose heart are the creative industries which lie at the crossroads of culture, business, and technology. And what unifies those activities is the fact that they all trade with creative assets in the form of intellectual property, IP, the framework through which creativity translates itself into economic value. The notion of creative industries derived from the UK government's Department for Culture, Media and Sport, DCMS for short, its mapping exercise and definition in 1998, which is those industries which have their origin in individual creativity, skill and talent, and which have a potential for wealth and job creation through the generation and exploitation of intellectual property. The mapping of the 13 subsectors defined by the DCMS was copied widely, profiling advertising, architecture, the art and antiques market, crafts, design, designer fashion, film, video, interactive leisure software, music, the performing arts, publishing, software and computer games, and television and radio. The term cultural industries is also used by some agencies, though this term relates to a more specific set of industries and can be regarded as a subset of the creative industries. In the UK, the hybrid term creative and cultural industries is often used, for instance, by Creative and Cultural Skills, which is one of the United Kingdom's learning skills councils, and whose footprint includes craft, design, cultural heritage, music, literature, and performing and visual arts. So although there is a struggle for definitional coherence and challenges to the early list-based approach, there is a growing consensus around what should be core to the definition of the creative industries. For example, and you can see up on the screen, the UK's National Endowment for Science, Technology and the Arts, NESTA, has produced what it calls a refined model for the creative industries that includes creative experience providers, in other words, those who provide live theatre, opera, or multimedia performances, creative content producers, film and TV companies, computer and video game studios and fashion houses, creative service providers, meaning architectural practices, advertising agencies, and design consultancies, and creative originals producers, visual artists, and craftspeople. Nesta maintains that this model provides for better targeting of economic growth as it separates out those who create IP. However, this illuminates another debate in a sector dominated by micro-businesses, namely what exactly constitutes growth. And in the context of the creative rural economy, with its geographic and demographic constraints, this is particularly contentious. In terms of the global interpretation of creative industries, Canada and the province of Ontario offer an interesting comparison to Scotland and the United Kingdom. And it's especially interesting because it draws upon Richard Florida's widely disseminated work on the creative class. So Ontario has adopted a concept of the creative economy that considers the economy in accordance with the work that people do to encompass creative occupations, thus adding scientists and technologists to designers and artists. Another bit of help in contouring the cultural creative sector and its economy comes from the European Commission. It defines the culture sector as a non-industrial sector producing non-reproducible goods and services that are consumed on the spot, like exhibitions, concerts, and festivals. This is the arts field, visual and performing arts, as well as heritage. In this way, within the creative sector, culture becomes a creative input into the production of non-cultural goods, largely through design, fashion, interior, games, and product. Thus, creativity can become a source of innovation. And this links with the influential Cox Review from 2005, which was prepared for the UK Treasury, which clearly underlined the connection between creativity, innovation, and design in relation to improving the performance of UK businesses. A succession of European strategy documents have since attempted to underpin the role of the sector, from unlocking their wider and economic social potential to the Amsterdam Declaration and the establishment of a European Creative Industries Alliance and the European Innovation Union. So there is a sense at the European level, at least, of coordinated action on creative industries. So that's the broad definitional context where I'm coming from, if you like. It's a bit different from that of Ontario, but I still think there are some very important similarities. But moving on from that context, my focus is Scotland, and I'm going to talk about it in terms of the creative nation, creative city, creative region, creative place, and creative people, and how policy and leadership is instrumental in helping to join them up. At the same time, I'm going to talk about partnership, the economy or the ecology of the creative industries, growth, the project economy and what that might mean, infrastructure, things like hubs, networks, skills, spillovers, and design as the connective tissue between creativity and innovation. One of the reasons I think I'm here is because of this document, and the Scottish Government created or identified creative industries as a key priority in 2009 and established a Scottish Creative Industries Partnership to be chaired by Creative Scotland, the national agency, whose recently published corporate plan outlines the strategic role of the Creative Industries Partnership, especially the national coordination of the various stakeholders, private and public. And Scotland is probably unique in seeking to integrate the breadth of the creative and cultural industries in terms of policy and delivery. Creative Scotland's corporate plan talks of investing in the cultural economy and simultaneously promoting social objectives as well as the responsibilities to stimulate growth in the economy of culture and the creative industries, the latter through the Scottish Creative Industries Partnership. In this respect, Scotland is in line with contemporary European strategy in recognising the key drivers, namely the need to put the right enablers in place, that is the public-private partnership, increasing the capacity to experiment, using local and regional development as a global launchpad, and moving towards a creative economy by catalysing the spillover effects of the creative industries on a wide range of economic and social contexts. The partnership framework that they've set up is really quite important, and you see a map of it here on the screen. And a review of the recent literature done for the Scottish Government has highlighted the importance of formulating a definition of the creative sector that is relevant to the context in which it is to be applied, and which enables analysis to consider what is of interest to a particular policy setting. And to this end, the research suggests that approaches based on the wider concept of the creative economy, which includes the creative industries, may be able to overcome some of the perceived limitations of previous definitions. And Creative Scotland's partnership architecture, which includes all the main stakeholders, private and public, sets out to do just that. The role of the Scottish Creative Industries Partnership, again, which I think is quite unique, is to lead or provide leadership on research, intelligence, advocacy, and policy. And the context for SKIP, to use the acronym, is that creative industries in Scotland employ 65,000 people. This is in a population of just under 5 million, with a turnover of £5 billion sterling and a GVA of 2.5 billion, representing 4% of GDP. And it's growing faster, and this is the important bit, than the economy as a whole. I'm not quite sure how to get rid of that message, but I think it might disappear quite soon.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Okay? Great, thank you.
We'll need to interrupt in just a moment. It's saying it actually needs power, so I'll need tech support to bring power so that the laptop continues to function. Thank you.
Okay, we'll struggle on anyway. As a further example of joined upness, if you like, and the coordinating role of this Scottish Creative Industries Partnership, again, for the first time in 2010, last year, a creative sector skills action plan was prepared. It brought together Scotland's main public sector organisations, and the power's just gone, concerned with education and training to contribute their expertise and advise on future opportunities for strengthening Scotland's creative industries. The purpose of this plan was to provide, and this is very important, an industry-led and industry-informed framework against which better support for more targeted skills and learning in Scotland's creative sector could be prioritised. According to the plan, this was to be achieved by fostering a step change in the way in which learning and skills for Scotland's creative employers and practitioners are supported, clarifying the routes to funding skills and learning that satisfy the needs of the sector, and supporting extreme collaboration across all partners and stakeholders. Okay, thanks for the continuity. I'll recap a little bit, which is going back to the idea of joint upness and the coordinating role of this national Scottish Creative Industries Partnership. Again, for the first time last year, a creative sector skills action plan was prepared, and it brought together Scotland's main public sector organisations concerned with education and training to contribute their expertise and advise on future opportunities for strengthening Scotland's creative industries. The purpose of this plan was to provide an industry-informed and industry-led framework against which better support for more targeted skills and learning in Scotland's creative sector could be prioritised. And according to the plan, this was to be achieved by fostering a step change in the way in which learning and skills for Scotland's creative employers and practitioners are supported, clarifying routes to funding, and providing skills and learning that satisfy the needs of the sector, and supporting extreme collaboration across all partners and stakeholders. Just to point out, Creative and Cultural Skills, which you see up on the screen, is a UK-wide organisation which supports and advises on learning and training for the creative and cultural sector. And its website provides lots of tools and support resources for the sector, downloadable business planning tools, case studies, lecture notes, and all sorts of useful materials absolutely free of charge for people in the sector. And it's a very important part of the jigsaw or the joined-up policy narrative that I'm talking about. At the same time, again, as part of this joined-up policy narrative, the role of Scotland's universities, the primary source of talent for the creative economy, has also been highlighted. And amongst its key findings in this report are that employability and entrepreneurship are growing areas of focus for higher education, and universities can be an important provider of continuing professional development, CPD, for the creative industries. In addition, the plan, this document, Scotland's Creative Economy, the Role of Universities, this plan highlights the need for greater collaboration between universities and skills and training providers. And against that background, the detailed targets and impacts of Creative Scotland's plan attempt to outline national outcomes with partnership as a high priority driver in order to promote the unique contribution that different places, local authority areas and sub-regions play in a Creative Scotland. Therefore, in addition to promoting a holistic approach to creativity and culture, national policy is also committed to developing Scotland's creative urban and rural economies, as well as the necessary underpinning education and training. Nonetheless, some issues, and maybe these are global concerns, remain, not least the fact that the sector is dominated by micro-businesses, and once you dig beneath the data, growth is not quite what it seems. Two questions hang in the air. First, what does growth mean in the creative industries and the creative rural economy? And second, how can we develop a more entrepreneurial culture within the creative sector? You have to see, though, the rural creative economy in relation to the wider context. In terms of the UK and Scotland's creative economy, Glasgow is a key player, and it's important to sketch out briefly how that happened. Glasgow's post-industrial transformation over the past 2 decades has been well documented. In what became a global phenomenon, the transformation of cities by design and cultural regeneration, Glasgow, through its reign in 1990 as European Capital of Culture, used design and creativity to help define a decade, literally. The timing was absolutely crucial, helped by Roger Hargreaves' graphics and the marketing acumen of its civic leadership. Glasgow, once the second city of the British Empire, began its long and painful journey from the gloom of its industrial past with its renowned Glasgow Miles Better campaign in the mid-80s and one of the biggest urban ground shifts in history. In fact, Glasgow is now regarded as one of the most creative cities in Europe. Its creative industries have a 1.5 billion turnover and employ over 30,000 people in over 2,000 creative businesses. And the city has invested £1.5 billion in infrastructure since 1990. Many would argue that Glasgow is the UK's creative and cultural capital. Those inward investment and cultural strategies that started in the late 80s, particularly the opening of the Borough Collection, which you can see on the slide, a landmark building predating Bilbao's Guggenheim and its effect by a decade, helped Glasgow secure the 1990 European City of Culture crown and created a virtuous circle of design creativity, including the 1996 International Design Festival, leading to the prize of UK City of Architecture and Design in 1999, and the opening up of the Lighthouse as Scotland's Centre for Architecture, Design and the City. Glasgow has been a model with its momentum building techniques copied elsewhere, and the place marketing and city branding strategies that started with the Glasgow Miles Better campaign and was the multiplier effect in City of Culture carried through into the 1996 and 1999 International Design Festivals. One of the most important staging posts for Glasgow as a creative city was its reign on the eve of the millennium as UK City of Architecture and Design. In that context, developing a reputation for innovation linked to the creative economy accelerated with the Lighthouse, the 25 million Canadian dollar conversion of Charles Rennie Mackintosh's former Glasgow Herald building. As well as being about cultural tourism, it also sits on the crossover from cultural consumption to cultural production. The Lighthouse, with its mix of exhibitions, events, education, design into business, and creative industries network, is on the commercially active side of the arts economy equation, establishing a new business model and tools for the creative sector. And it was used as an international model of a creative industries hub in the UK Treasury's Cox Review. Glasgow's investment in its cultural and creative infrastructure has continued with its Riverside and the development by the BBC by English architect David Chipperfield, which is also home to many independents, which is a strange twist of direction for the BBC. But the BBC is also now thinking about the creative industries in an entirely different way. So in that building are housed a large number of creative businesses, which in turn, of course, feed into the BBC's content. There's also, and it opens next week, the new Riverside Museum, designed by Zaha Hadid, Pritzker Prize-winning architect. This building, which is called Trongate 103, which houses numerous cultural enterprises, including the offices of Glasgow City Council's cultural organisation. And Film City, again, a conversion of a heritage building to support screen industries. And this building, the Brigate, a former fish market, that now contains 60 artist studios and office space for a similar number of creative businesses. The latter building, the Brigate, also houses this organisation, which is called the Cultural Enterprise Office, and again, another important part of the joined-up jigsaw, which provides support to startups on a Scotland-wide basis. And the Cultural Enterprise Office has been rolled out nationally as an important part of the Creative Scotland policy narrative. And the city's and Scotland's infrastructure has been enhanced with a substantial virtual resource called Central Station, a social media network for the creative industries. But it has become more than a social network for creative people. It has become literally a platform for debate, an archive, a collection, and a space that has attracted the attention of the policy community. Festivals, which were an important part of the transformation of Glasgow, as well as being strategically important in cultural transformation, are also now an important part of Glasgow's creative economy, as well as being a strategic priority for Creative Scotland. They also provide a key to understanding the project economy. And in another first, Creative Scotland has collated a programme of all Scotland's 280 annual festivals. One of the most important festivals is Celtic Connections. Established in Glasgow in 1994, it features 1,500 artists with 300 events in 14 venues across the city over 18 days. Apart from the cultural dimension to this international music festival, it includes an educational outreach and an international showcase. And the latter is very important for industry development, as is the festival's tourism impact. In 2011, this year, there were over 100,000 attendances with 25% overnight stays, with a direct economic impact of over £4.5 million on the city and over £3.5 million on the Scottish economy generally. Quite literally, Celtic Connections networks Scotland's urban and rural music segments, especially the Gaelic world, as well as making connections to international events like Interceltique and Celtic Colours. And importantly, in terms of the rural creative economy or the Highland economy, Celtic Connections links to Feshin and Gale, Prusik Nan and the Highlands-wide Blas Festival, all crucially important to Scotland's cultural and creative economy. In fact, Celtic Connections is a good example of the creative cultural ecology. For some, this means the subsidised arts feeding the commercial arts, the voluntary arts, and the amateur arts, thus ensuring creativity permeates everywhere. For others, it means the borrowing, sharing, and developing of ideas. Certainly, Celtic Connections has created new synergies, allowing performers and musicians to come together to create new work. It has also spawned new commissions and created content for MG Alba, a partnership with BBC to broadcast its Gaelic TV channel. In addition to its TV audience, through BBC's iPlayer, MG Alba has notched up over 1 million downloads, a substantial contributor to which, in one way or another, has been Celtic Connections. Creative entrepreneurship is also a permeating feature of Celtic Connections, with exponents like Capercaillies' Donald Shaw, Gaelic singer Julie Fowlis, and Blazing Fiddles' Adrian O'Rourke. All three variously intertwined performance, production, promotion, and cultural leadership and project management, coming together with different creatives at different times in different places to develop and deliver particular commissions or projects. Importantly, all three prosper in the creative rural economy. All three are based in the Highlands, and they use their talents and expertise to support and facilitate others to do the same. The Highlands and Islands, which is both a local authority area, a political area, and an economic region, covers most of Scotland geographically. It's 1/4 the size of rural Ontario in both population and landmass. A recent report from last year on the area has indicated that its creative industries employ just over 13,000 people in 1,600 odd creative businesses, generating about £190 million in GVA, with over £500 million turnover per annum. Of those businesses, 72% employed less than 5 people, and 51% had a turnover of less than £100,000. The challenges for the area are, therefore, extreme fragmentation and distance from market, problems of scale and the need to network micro-businesses, finance, especially for research and development, continuous professional development, and the supply chain and the need to understand the ecology of the area's creative industries. Perhaps some of those chime with issues in Ontario. What is striking about the sectoral strategy for the area is its recognition of the connective role of Gaelic, especially MG Alba and Feshtang Gael, which you would expect for that area, but interestingly, at the same time, the need for design-led innovation and spillovers. And this is led, in the latter sense, to identifying priorities such as strengthening communities, life sciences, and the importance of personalization of medical devices and other products and services, an emphasis on renewables and procurement of renewables, the role of universities, especially the University of the Highlands and Islands, and their role in developing new models and methodologies in terms of business services per se, like new home working opportunities, tourism and its promotion, and food and drink linked to events, festivals, and international initiatives. In turn, these priorities coalesce into strategic targets such as growing the sector by 26% by 2017, idea development, distribution, networking, focusing on innovations and skills development, integration with other sectors, festivals, and partnership with Scottish Government and Creative Scotland, going back to the joined-up policy narrative again. Highlands and Islands have also developed a reputation for innovation, and last year, the 2010 Highland Housing Fair was a prime example. The Highlands of Scotland might not be the first choice for an expo of contemporary housing, but this region's innovation in placemaking goes way beyond housing. The building pictured on the slide there is called Mareel, and Mooreel will be the UK's most northerly creative industries centre, which is due to open in late 2011. This £12 million building, designed by Gareth Hoskins Architects based in Glasgow, is situated in a prominent quayside area in Lerwick in the Shetland Islands, next to the new Shetland Museum and Archives. The Shetland Islands, if you remember the map I showed at the beginning of this talk, are the most northerly and most remote part of the United Kingdom. Mooreel will have 2 cinema screens, a live performance auditorium, rehearsal rooms, a recording studio, education and training spaces, a digital media production suite, and a cafe bar with free Wi-Fi. It's a hugely important project for Shetland, culturally, educationally, and economically. Mooreel, just to give you the kind of economic breakdown, will create 50 full-time jobs. That's an island population of about 15,000 people. We'll create 52 full-time jobs and help with positive effects on population, especially the retention of young people. It's also intended to raise the profile of Shetland and the Highlands and Islands internationally, and the University of the Highlands and Islands will deliver music and sound engineering courses, and there's a multimedia production suite for film, TV, web design, and for digital arts. So as well as providing a significant community asset in the remotest part of the United Kingdom, Mooreel will also provide a supportive environment for the island's creative entrepreneurs, particularly in terms of internationalization and promoting creative businesses in a global marketplace. Just to stick with islands, for example, in the neighbouring island of Orkney, again, the most northerly tip of Scotland and the United Kingdom, in the neighbouring island of Orkney, international design companies, Tate & Style, design and produce fabrics which are retailed throughout Europe and Asia. Orkney is not generally thought of as one of the world's fashion centres, but it does have a tremendous pool of traditional skills like knitting and needle punching that Tate & Style draws upon. The company exploits the possibilities of Fair Isle and other traditional knitting techniques and works with knitters in the Shetland Islands. Tate & Style has also developed a reputation for innovative and unique fabrics and for collaboration with other designers. One is Donna Wilson, a graduate of Grace School of Art, who last year was UK Designer of the Year. And Tate & Style have worked with Conran, Marité and François Girbeau, Comme des Garçons, John Galliano, Dior, Shirin Guild, Givenchy, Kenzo, and John Rocha. Nurturing craft-based enterprises like Tate & Style, it seems to me, are crucial to the remote creative economy. And that company is a model of elevating indigenous human and material resources to a high level of design in which community identity is prime. Growth in terms of Tate & Style is not via the conventional business, in the conventional business sense. It is via collaboration and international networking. But remoteness and an emphasis on craft that takes its inspiration from the local environment need not be a barrier to business development and growth in terms of scale. Sheila Fleet Jewellery, also based in Orkney, employs 50 people and is expanding. The company sells through its own outlets in every major city in the UK and major department stores throughout the country. Likewise, long-established Orkney jeweller Ortac, which last year turned over more than £8 million, has outlets across the UK and works totally from its base in rural island Orkney. So the crafts, although they've had a bad press recently, the crafts are inseparable from design and play a crucial role in the creative rural economy. The crafts focus on skills, on making, renders its graduates and practitioners valuable in the post-global economic crisis. Evidence of this is provided by a study by the National Endowment for Science, Technology and the Arts, known as NESTA in the UK. That study demonstrated how art school graduates or design school graduates contribute to innovation both within the arts and the wider economy. The research found that these graduates possess the attitude and skills that are conducive to innovation, and that they also see themselves as brokers across disciplines. And central to the findings were experimentation and openness to new ideas, skills that are prized in the crafts and which are valuable in the creative economy. Therefore, retaining and attracting talent from art and design schools is not only important, so is locating higher education outposts in remote communities like basing the University of the Highlands and Islands in Bareel in Shetland. The Scottish Government has set a target for the creative economy for it to grow by 26% by 2015. Likewise, the Highlands and Islands has pitched a target of 26% by 2017. And key to that growth is a number of factors, not least understanding the creative ecology in which creative industries operate. Instrumental in that sense is encouraging research that focuses on creative entrepreneurs themselves, their experiences, activities, and interactions. And this means appreciating growth in relation to the project economy alongside conventional business development. Also crucial is promoting creative industries spillovers into other areas of the economy. Highlands and Islands' identification of possible targets ranging from medical devices to social enterprises is also useful in this respect. And encouraging such extreme collaboration requires a particular kind of training and development, one that is customised to the creative industries, such as providing a matchmaking service, design-driven innovation workshops, open innovation, industry networking, and innovation camps and events. This paper was predicated on the developmental journey of creative industries towards the creative economy, moving from an appreciation of the urban context to what it is that makes the creative rural economy distinctive. In that sense, it has emerged that geography is hugely important and adds to product and service distinctiveness. It's also important that Creative Scotland's strategy includes the contribution of place to the creative economy as a cross-cutting objective. Creative entrepreneurship also arose as central, linked to skills and professional development, customised to the particular needs of the sector. It also demands a greater academic research focus, and it may be in this respect, as well as encouraging overspills, that the broader Canadian categorisation of creative professions, linked to Florida's identification of 3 sets of skills, analytical, social intelligence, and physical, are helpful. Infrastructure is also absolutely essential, as is tailored support and very judicious public intervention. And of course, all of this needs strategic national coordination, and joined-up creativity is key. Thank you very much.
To get the floor.
On your last slide, the last point said joined-up creativity is key. Can you just go over that again?
Sorry, could you just repeat that question, please?
Joined-up creativity is key. Just go over that.
Just go over that last point, yeah. That was my kind of abbreviated way of saying that joined-up policy making is key. So it's a little soundbite, if you like. But what I was really referring to was the importance of the interconnectedness of policy. Policy at the national level, policy at the kind of regional planning level, policy at the city level, and policy at the more local level, if you like. And what I was trying to do was demonstrate that through the kind of planning, the corporate planning of Creative Scotland, the national agency, the fact it works in partnership with a whole number of public and private agencies, the role of cities like Glasgow in taking that forward or being part of that partnership, and then from a big urban conurbation like Glasgow, looking at a very small, isolated, remote, rural community like Shetland, which would take you from Glasgow a couple of days to get to, or if you're traveling from London, you know, a good while to get to. So it was that interconnectedness, that kind of joined-up creativity I was also trying to get to. There was also a kind of other point there by saying joined-up creativity, was trying to look at the link between creativity and innovation, and creativity, design and innovation, that you can't just simply be creative. In order for creativity to have an impact, you have to have a methodology, a tool, a process. And in many ways, design in its widest sense is that methodology that makes the link into innovation and into the wider economy. It's kind of bridge from creativity into the economy, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Not sure if you can help us with this one, but given you've been around the sector for so long, is there any particular source from which that leadership has evolved in pushing these ideas and issues forward? Has it come from the creative sector, the university sector, the government at any level?
The kind of stimulus, if you like, 12, 13 years ago was research. So in one sense, the source was academic, which demonstrated that in the UK, if you group together those sectors that were lumped into the creative industries, that list of 13 subsectors, they added up to a very significant impact on GVA and in terms of exports and turnover and so on. So that was the first bit of stimulus that got the interest of politicians. Then what happened, of course, was that cities, in cities like Glasgow, but Manchester, other UK cities, seized on this. Our local development agencies, and in Scotland it would be the development agency Scottish Enterprise, then did their own mapping exercises and found very comparable sets of data that if you looked at the creative sector, okay, there were lots of debate about how it was organised, but nonetheless, there was a convergence of kind of flows of data confirming its economic importance, if you like. That then, of course, caught the wider political eye, political attention, and it was turned into a broader policy narrative about creative Britain and the creative economy, and with national agencies being charged to take it forward. And then in Scotland, you know, jumping a few years ahead, creative industries was picked upon as one of the 6, 7 key economic priority areas for the economy, as indeed it is for the UK economy, with very strategic interventions developed at the kind of policy level to help take that forward. So the original source was academic, it was data-driven. Then it attracted the eye of the politicians because you could see it was about job creation and wealth creation. And certainly for the Labour government, when in its 3 terms in office, it also saw the creative industries, and some would say cynically, as a way of delivering lots of government strategies also. Some of that's unravelling now, but I think there is wide consensus, and that's why I was making mention of the European research, that the creative industries, the creative economy makes sense. It has economic and social impact, and it needs support to help it drive forward.
Over here.
I'll bring this in just a moment. Just to follow up on that reference to Europe, Stuart, and to what extent was reframing the Scottish creative economy, and particularly the rural creative economy, in a European context, was that what gave Scotland the impetus? Because I'm thinking of the Creative Britain report, which came out in 2008, which made absolutely no reference to rural communities or the rural economy, despite intensive lobbying. Was it the European discourse that set Scotland free, or was it just Scottish stubbornness?
Yeah. Ian's very, very unhelpfully opened up a sort of jar of worms about the politics of devolved Scotland, which I'll try and give you the nutshell version of, which is anything that happens in England, Scotland will want to do the reverse or the opposite. And that's been happening through the Thatcher era, through the Blair era, and now through the Cameron coalition era. And Scotland aligns itself much more with European politics than it does with Westminster-centric politics, if you like. And that's led to the rise of nationalism, for instance, very recently. Having said all that, the alignment in Scotland is much more with the European thinking strategy and indeed feeding into European strategy. And I think Scottish politicians, and this is anecdotal, sometimes find it more easy to influence European politics in Brussels than they might necessarily do in Westminster, for example. But I mentioned in about the middle of the talk there the emergence of the European Creative Industries Alliance, and I think it's important to mention that Scotland has been invited to be a key member of that, because in Europe they see what Scotland is doing in terms of that joined-up policy activity as being very much in line with European thinking and convergence of thinking on terms of the creative industries and their impact on the economy and social cohesion and bolstering the European economy and so on. So thanks for that question, Ian.
Hello. I was wondering if you could tell me how the creative economy sector has fared in the economic downturn in all over the world.
Yeah. I think just to preface my answer to that is, and I probably didn't mention this in the talk, that since the first mapping exercise in 1998, the UK government, the Scottish government, and local governments in the UK and in Scotland have continued to analyse the data, look at workforce developments and so on, and not just government agencies, but independent agencies, academic researchers. So we have a very, I think, good grasp of the reality of where the sector is heading. And I think one of the key facts, and this came out from the Work Foundation, which is an independent think tank in the UK, albeit slightly left of centre, but nonetheless, its most recent research, which I think is about 6 months old, has found that despite the economic downturn, the creative industries sector is doing better than the rest of the economy. It's been hit like the rest of the economy, but it's faring in terms of growth better than the economy, if you like. And I have to say, you can find out all this data just by, if you go onto the DCMS's website, and you'll get all those the kind of analyses that set this out.
Your second point up here talks about creative entrepreneurship is central. And in rural communities, I mean, people might have brilliant ideas, talents, but it's the business skills which are really going to help them actually go from, the cottage industry to actually moving it into sort of a creative industry. What's the plan in Scotland in terms of helping those individuals develop those entrepreneurial business skills to sort of monetize their creative ideas?
Okay, I think there's a two-part answer to that question. One is that creative entrepreneurship already exists in rural communities. It's not something new, if you like. And I was trying to give you a couple of examples of craft-based businesses, just to bring that out, if you like. There are creative entrepreneurs in the creative economy. And what we've not done so far is actually examined, analysed what they do, what are their behaviours, because they do operate, I think, differently from creative entrepreneurs in an urban context who have more immediate access to markets and networks and so on. So the kind of business behaviours of creative entrepreneurs in the rural economy are necessarily different from those in the urban economy. And we know quite a lot about people in the urban economy. So the next step, which is really the answer to your question, is doing much more research and analysis on successful creative entrepreneurs in the creative rural economy, harvesting that knowledge, turning it into case studies and programs for leadership and so on, that we can offer creative people in remote areas or the rural economy. One of the key agencies in doing that is Creative and Cultural Skills, which I pointed out in one of the early slides. And they have a leadership program which has its focus on creative entrepreneurship. And I and other people are trying to persuade them that the next step, they should be looking at the whole idea of creative entrepreneurship in the rural setting and looking at what makes interesting and successful entrepreneurs in the rural economy.
As children, we start off with lots of creativity and discovery. By the time we get to high school, most of that seems to be gone. In Ontario, to graduate high school, you need 1 arts credit, and so I'm just wondering, in order to have a better material, I guess, in terms of individuals reaching the universities and colleges, did you find that was an issue in Scotland, and was there anything that you did to sort of prepare students to maintain that creativity as they go through high school and into college and universities?
Yeah, I recognize what you say about the school system, driving creativity out of kids, although there are endless variations on that. But I think the reality is also, certainly in the UK, I can't speak for Canada, but certainly in the UK and maybe parts of Europe, there are no shortage of kids wanting to go to university to study creative courses. So whatever happens to them in secondary school, for example, or high school, they still have this drive or interest in doing design courses or music courses or whatever kind of courses it is. But I think there are two big challenges. One is giving them the appropriate careers advice, which doesn't exist at the kind of secondary school level. The kind of impetus is to get them into university. So they go there and study creative courses, not necessarily knowing what the kind of job prospects are once you get your degree and you exit. And as a former head of an art school, I totally understand that kind of scenario. So on the one hand, we need better careers advice in high school that recognizes the reality of the contemporary creative industries and what the job prospects are, or the fact that you have to create your own work, or the fact you may be unemployed for a long time, or the fact you may have several, and you have many, many jobs. You'll have to customize your career, and you'll have to be entrepreneurial to be successful. And how you explain that to a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old in terms that they can understand. And the other bit of the answer is providing appropriate and very high quality tools and resources to students at university, equally that helps them understand what entrepreneurship is. And I think there are a whole lot of, in the latter sense, looking at university, which I know best, there are a number of really interesting examples from UK universities about providing entrepreneurship skills training to undergraduates. And there are also some very good examples of cross-disciplinary courses or cross-disciplinary initiatives with creative courses combining with business studies courses, so that creative students who are studying creative courses get an insight into business and vice versa. Most famously, probably the best example is an initiative called Design London, which is a three-way partnership between the Royal College of Art, which is the UK's premier art and design college, Imperial College, which is one of the best engineering schools in the world, and the Tanaka Business School, where MBA students study design and design students study business, but it goes beyond that because the projects they work on go into an incubator if they're interesting, and then the projects are kind of nurtured and then led to market. That project is 3 years old. It celebrated its third birthday 3 weeks ago. And in 3 years, the projects that have been taken to market have a market capitalization of £15 million, which is not bad going in 3 years with kind of postgraduate initiatives. And there are similar initiatives across UK universities that I could point to. But that's part of a growing recognition that the economy is changing, therefore higher education has to respond in interesting and imaginative ways to that challenge. And Design London is just one of the challenges, if you like, ways of answering that challenge.
So we're out of time, but I have agreed to let Dr. Greg Spencer ask one final question. Then we're going to go into a break, and you'll have opportunities during the break to continue the discussion one-on-one with Professor MacDonald.
Thank you. I also have a sort of a bit of a follow-up question on the education front, part practice, part theory. 10 years ago, I was actually working in the UK, and I developed a knowledge economy strategy for the Highlands and Islands enterprise. And one of the things we found at that time was it was the biggest region in Europe without a university. I was actually hoping if you could give me some sort of update on whether or not something has happened with that, and if it has that had an impact on knowledge spillovers and skills development, or is that something that's still an aspiration for the region?
I'm very happy to update you that it now has a university, which I mentioned, which is called the University of the Highlands and Islands, UHI, and which got its university charter not so long ago, but it's been operating for, I think, maybe 5 years. It's a kind of virtual university. It has a kind of administrative base in Inverness, which is the kind of capital of the Highlands, as you'll know, but it's got satellite bases all over the Highland areas and on the islands. It's got Solon-Brostig is the Gaelic College in Skye. That's an outpost of the University of the Highlands and Islands. Marrio, which I talked about in Shetland, will be an outpost. And in the west of Scotland, which is still part of the Highlands and Islands, there are courses on hydrology, agriculture, and a whole number of things to do with the creative economy. So the Highlands and Islands, the University of the Highlands and Islands is now a really important part of that kind of sectoral strategy, certainly for the creative industries, but for all the other kind of economic strategies in the area.
Fantastic. Can you all please join me in thanking Professor Stuart MacDonald?